You're about to dive into one of the most intense and revealing confrontations in recent congressional hearings. This exchange between Pam Bondi, the Attorney General nominee under the Trump administration, and Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, a seasoned Democrat from Connecticut, wasn't just a routine budget discussion. It escalated into a raw, unfiltered clash that exposed deep ideological rifts in American politics, particularly around law enforcement, gun control, and federal budgeting. To understand why this matters, we need to set the stage properly. Hearings like this one, held before the House Appropriations Committee, are typically procedural affairs where nominees outline their visions and face questions on policy details. But on this day in late 2025, with the fiscal year 2026 budget on the table, the atmosphere was charged. The Republican-led administration was pushing for sweeping reforms, including massive restructuring of federal agencies, while Democrats were armed with data to challenge what they saw as dangerous cuts. Pam Bondi, a former Florida Attorney General and staunch Trump ally, entered the room with a prosecutor's confidence. Her background in law enforcement gave her credibility, but her alignment with conservative priorities, like reducing federal overreach on gun owners, made her a lightning rod for criticism. Opposite her sat Rosa DeLauro, a 82-year-old firebrand known for her no-nonsense style and deep dives into budget minutiae. DeLauro, with her signature red glasses and decades in Congress, has long championed progressive causes, including stronger gun regulations and robust funding for anti-trafficking efforts. She came prepared not just with questions but with receipts, hard numbers from official documents, to dismantle Bondi's proposals. The hearing focused on the Department of Justice's budget request, which included controversial moves like merging the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, with the Drug Enforcement Administration, DE. This wasn't a minor tweak. It represented a philosophical shift toward what Republicans called efficiency but what Democrats labeled as gutting essential oversight. The budget proposed a 26% cut to ATF funding below current levels, alongside reductions to DEA and other anti-drug programs. In a nation grappling with gun violence epidemics, over 40,000 firearm-related deaths annually, and a fentanyl crisis claiming 100,000 lives yearly, these cuts weren't abstract. They touched on real-world consequences, fewer agents on the streets, weakened partnerships with local police, and potentially more illegal guns and drugs flooding communities. As the chairman called the session to order, the tension was palpable. Witnesses and lawmakers exchanged polite nods, but underneath lurked the knowledge that this was Trump-era politics redux, bold, divisive, and unapologetic. DeLauro wasted no time. Her opening salvo wasn't about pleasantries, it was a direct hit on the administration's border security narrative. Fentanyl seizures are down 30% compared to last year, she stated flatly, citing data straight from Customs and Border Protection, CBP. This was a clever move. Republicans had long hammered Democrats on border issues, but here DeLauro flipped the script, using official stats to question the effectiveness of current policies. It wasn't made up, she emphasized, it was factual, grounded in government reports. But DeLauro quickly pivoted to her main target, Bondi's stance on gun trafficking. During Bondi's confirmation hearing earlier that year, she had vowed to do everything in her power to combat illegal gun runners. Yet, the budget told a different story. A 26% slash to ATF's resources seemed contradictory at best, hypocritical at worst. DeLauro pressed, how could such a massive cut not weaken ATF's collaboration with state and local law enforcement? How many officers and investigators would be lost to attrition? These weren't rhetorical questions. They demanded specifics, numbers that could quantify the human and operational cost. Bondi's response set the tone for the fireworks to come. Drawing on her career as a prosecutor, she emphasized safety and efficiency. Guns and drugs go together, she argued, justifying the ATF-DE merger as a streamlined approach to tackling intertwined threats. It sounded logical on the surface. Why duplicate efforts when cartels often traffic both? But DeLauro wasn't interested in philosophy, she wanted hard answers. As Bondi elaborated, insisting that agents would be out on the streets rather than harassing legal gun owners, DeLauro interjected sharply. The exchange devolved from there, with raised voices and accusations of filibustering. This initial segment highlights the setup: two strong-willed women, each representing polar opposites in the gun and drug policy debate. Bondi embodied the conservative push for deregulation and street-level focus, echoing Second Amendment protections and anti-overreach sentiments popular among GOP voters. DeLauro, conversely, stood for robust federal intervention, using data to argue that cuts would embolden criminals. Why does this matter? In a divided America, where mass shootings make headlines weekly and opioid deaths ravage families, these policies aren't theoretical. They determine whether communities get the resources to fight back. As we move deeper, remember the broader context. The 2024 election had returned Trump to power amid promises of law and order, but with a twist: less bureaucracy, more action. Critics argued this meant defunding agencies that enforce unpopular rules, like background checks or dealer inspections. Supporters saw it as empowering agents to target real threats, not law-abiding citizens. This clash wasn't isolated, it mirrored national debates, from school shootings in Uvalde to fentanyl flows from Mexico. DeLauro's impatience reflected Democratic fears that these cuts would reverse hard-won progress under Biden, like the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. Bondi's pivot to legal gun owners was telling. It tapped into NRA-backed narratives of ATF overreach, stories of midnight raids that, while rare, fuel conservative outrage. But DeLauro countered with facts: attrition would gut capacity. This wasn't calm discourse, it was a preview of governance battles ahead. As the hearing progressed, the ideological collision intensified, revealing not just policy differences but fundamental views on government's role in public safety. In the end, this setup underscores a shifting landscape. Post-2024, Republicans hold power, but Democrats like DeLauro aren't yielding ground. Her use of CBP data challenged the narrative, forcing Bondi on defense. What started as a budget query became a microcosm of America's culture wars. Stay tuned as we break down the escalation in the next segment. Building on the explosive setup, let's zoom in on the moment the exchange truly ignited. Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro didn't come to play. She arrived with an arsenal of statistics, direct quotes from budget documents, and an unyielding demand for accountability. Her approach was methodical, starting with a fact that undercut the administration's tough-on-crime image: fentanyl seizures down 30%. This wasn't hearsay, it was pulled from CBP's own reports, which track border interdictions meticulously. In 2024, seizures hit record highs under heightened enforcement, but 2025 saw a dip, possibly due to shifting trafficking routes or resource strains. DeLauro used this to imply that the proposed budget cuts would exacerbate the problem, not solve it. Quickly shifting gears, DeLauro targeted the heart of Bondi's proposal: the ATF cuts. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives isn't just another agency, it's the front line in regulating firearms dealers, tracing crime guns, and partnering with local police on trafficking cases. With over 5,000 employees, ATF conducts thousands of inspections annually, revoking licenses from rogue dealers and seizing illegal weapons. A 26% funding reduction, equating to hundreds of millions in lost dollars, threatened all that. DeLauro's question was pointed: how do you justify this without weakening anti-trafficking efforts? She followed up with specifics on personnel losses, pressing for numbers on agents and investigators lost to attrition. Attrition, in federal terms, means natural departures like retirements or resignations, not outright firings. But in a budget squeeze, it often leads to unfilled positions, effectively shrinking the workforce. DeLauro knew this. Her years on the Appropriations Committee had honed her expertise in these nuances. Bondi, however, responded with a broader vision. As a career prosecutor, she stressed integration, merging ATF with DEA to combat the guns-drugs nexus. Cartels like Sinaloa traffic both, she argued, and silos between agencies hinder efficiency. This merger, part of Trump's America First agenda, aimed to eliminate redundancies, potentially saving taxpayer money while focusing on high-impact operations. But DeLauro saw it as smoke and mirrors. A 4.4% cut to DEA on top of ATF/ plus a 34% reduction to the high-intensity drug trafficking areas, HITA, program, painted a picture of underfunding. HITA, which coordinates multi-agency efforts in hotspots like Appalachia or the Southwest, has been credited with major busts. Zeroing out dedicated funds for the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Forces, OCDETF, was another red flag. These task forces fuse federal, state, and local resources against transnational threats. DeLauro's conclusion: the budget shortchanges efforts against both guns and drugs. The tension boiled over when Bondi tried to elaborate. ATF agents will not be knocking on doors of legal gun owners, she said, evoking images of overzealous federal raids that resonate with conservative audiences. This was a direct nod to controversies like the 2023 ATF rule on pistol braces, which critics called an assault on Second Amendment rights. Bondi promised agents would be out on the streets, implying a shift from regulatory desk work to active enforcement. But DeLauro interrupted, accusing her of filibustering. "Answer yes or no. Tell me the numbers," she demanded, her voice rising. This moment captured the philosophical divide. Bondi viewed the merger as modernization, freeing agents from bureaucracy to tackle violent criminals. DeLauro saw it as deregulation in disguise, reducing oversight on an industry with over 80,000 dealers, many of whom have been cited for violations like failing to run background checks. Data from the Brady campaign shows lax regulation contributes to crime guns traced to trafficking. By merging, critics argued, the administration could dilute ATF's unique firearms expertise under DA's drug-focused umbrella. As DeLauro pressed, Bondi pushed back, "I'm answering calmly, unlike you." This personal jab escalated things, turning policy into personality. DeLauro, undeterred, took the unusual step of answering her own question, quoting page 146 of the DOJ's FY 2026 budget summary. ATF will eliminate 541 industry operations investigators, she read, noting a 40% reduction in regulatory capacity. Fewer inspections mean more unchecked dealers, potentially more straw purchases feeding trafficking networks. She continued, 284 support personnel and 186 agents lost to attrition, impacting functions across the board. These numbers weren't abstract, they represented real cuts. Industry operations investigators, IOIs, ensure compliance, revoking licenses from bad actors. Losing 541, nearly half the IOI workforce, could lead to thousands fewer audits, allowing problematic dealers to operate unchecked. Agents, the sworn law enforcement arm, handle investigations like Operation Fast and Furious Echoes, tracing guns to cartels. 186 fewer agents mean slower response times, weaker support for locals solving shootings. DeLauro's data dive exposed the budget's underbelly, not efficiency, but a rollback. Bondi's pivot to street ops ignored that regulation prevents crimes upstream. For instance, ATF's National Tracing Center processes over 1.5 million traces yearly, helping link guns to suspects. Cuts could backlog this, hindering investigations. Philosophically, this clash revealed competing visions, Democrats favoring comprehensive enforcement, Republicans prioritizing individual rights and targeted action. By segment's end, the exchange had shifted from questions to confrontation. DeLauro's frustration stemmed from evaded answers, Bondi's from perceived attacks on her vision. This wasn't just about numbers, it's about trust in government. In a post-January 6 era, where federal agencies face scrutiny, such debates shape public perception. As we proceed, watch how this ideological battle unfolds further. As the hearing intensified, the dynamic between Bondi and DeLauro turned from tense to combustible. DeLauro's insistence on specifics clashed with Bondi's broader narrative, leading to interruptions that highlighted their contrasting styles. DeLauro, with her Connecticut roots in a state scarred by Sandy Hook, brought passion born from tragedy. Bondi, from Florida's Parkland aftermath, claimed similar credentials but framed them through a conservative lens. This segment explores the interruptions, the personal barbs, and what they reveal about power dynamics in Congress. DeLauro's second push came after Bondi's initial response. "You haven't answered my question," she said, her tone sharp. She reiterated the cuts, 26% to ATF, 4.4% to D, 34% to HITTA, and nothing for OCDETF. These weren't minor. HITTA funds 34 areas, supporting 3,000 task forces. Cutting it means less intel sharing, fewer arrests. DeLauro argued this shortchanges federal anti-trafficking efforts, letting guns and fentanyl flow freer. Bondi tried to respond calmly, emphasizing reorganization. ATF agents want to be out on the street, she said, suggesting the merger would empower field work. But DeLauro cut in, no, no, no. You asked me a question? Wait, I asked you. The mix-up underscored the chaos. DeLauro demanded the chairman intervene for an answer, highlighting procedural norms. Witnesses must respond directly. The interruption peaked when DeLauro called Bondi's explanation a filibuster. In congressional terms, filibusters delay, and DeLauro accused Bondi of evading. Bondi shot back, as I was attempting to answer very calmly, unlike you. The unlike you was a dig at DeLauro's attitude, escalating to personal territory. DeLauro retorted, excuse me, Madam Attorney General, demanding yes, no, or numbers. This exchange wasn't just rude, it was strategic. DeLauro used interruptions to control the narrative, preventing Bondi from spinning. Bondi, by contrast, used composure to portray DeLauro as unhinged, appealing to viewers who value decorum. But underlying was substance. Bondi's avoidance of numbers suggested the cuts were indefensible. DeLauro then quoted the budget: 541 IOIs gone, 40% regulatory cut, fewer inspections. 284 support staff and 186 agents lost. These figures, from DOJ's own document, were damning. Inspections dropped from 13,000 yearly could rise in violations. ATF revokes only 100 licenses annually, but cuts amplify risks. Agents lost mean fewer on task forces like those busting iron pipelines from states with lax laws to high-crime cities. Philosophically, interruptions revealed divides. Bondi focused on not knocking on doors, alluding to ATF's 2022 zero-tolerance policy on willful violations, which conservatives called harassment. DeLauro saw it as essential oversight. Without it, trafficking thrives. Data from Everytown shows 10% of dealers supply 90% of crime guns. Regulating them saves lives. Tensions rose as DeLauro concluded, it's clear the direction you're headed, weakening anti-gun trafficking. Bondi asked for 3 seconds, we will not have agents going to gun owners' doors. They'll be with DA on streets. But DeLauro interjected, how many are gone? Bondi insisted attrition, not firings, and agents want street work. DeLauro, you're getting them off the streets. This back and forth showed miscommunication or deliberate dodging. Attrition in underfunded agencies often leads to morale drops, more exits. ATF's vacancy rate already hovers at 10%, cuts worsen it. Bondi's claim of putting them on streets ignored that IOIs are regulatory, not field agents, but losing support hampers all. The chairman's intervention to move on underscored the dysfunction. This segment illustrates how interruptions amplify ideological clashes. In a polarized Congress, such moments go viral, shaping public opinion. DeLauro's aggression rallied progressives. Bondi's calm appealed to conservatives. But facts favored DeLauro, the numbers don't lie. Broader implications: this reflects post-2024 shifts, with Republicans reshaping agencies to align with base priorities. Democrats, in minority, use hearings to expose flaws. As fentanyl kills 300 daily and guns claim 120, these debates matter. Next, we explore Bondi's defense. With tensions at a peak, Pam Bondi mounted her defense, framing the budget as a bold reform rather than a cut. This segment dissects her arguments, DeLauro's rebuttals, and the underlying philosophy. Bondi, leveraging her prosecutor background, positioned herself as a safety champion. I believe in making America safe, she stated, emphasizing the guns-drugs link. Merging ATF and DA, she argued, eliminates silos, enhancing efficiency against cartels. This makes sense in theory. DA focuses on narcotics, ATF on firearms, but operations overlap. 80% of cartel seizures involve both. Integration could streamline intel, like sharing databases for tracing. Bondi promised no midnight raids on legal owners, targeting illegal gun runners. This resonated with GOP voters, wary of federal overreach since Waco. But DeLauro dismantled it with specifics. The merger, combined with cuts, means shortchanging resources, she said. A 26% ATF cut equals $500 million less, forcing choices, fewer traces or investigations. Bondi's efficiency claim ignored that mergers take years, with costs like training. Historical examples, like DHS formation post 9/11, show initial disruptions. Bondi insisted agents would be out on streets, not regulatory work. But DeLauro quoted the budget, 40% regulatory reduction. Regulation isn't harassment, it's prevention. ATF inspections catch errors like missing serial numbers, stopping trafficking at source. Losing 541 IOIs means more kitchen table dealers operating unlicensed. The philosophical clash was stark. Bondi viewed government as intrusive, prioritizing individual rights. Legal gun owners' line evoked 2A fears, despite ATF targeting violators. DeLauro saw government as protector, arguing cuts weaken state, local support. ATF aids 50,000 plus traces yearly for police. Fewer agents slow that. Bondi clarified, it's attrition, not firing. Agents want street work. But attrition in austerity leads to brain drain. ATF's 2,600 agents are stretched, losing 186 means caseload spikes, burnout. DeLauro, you're getting them off the streets. Bondi, putting them on. This contradiction highlighted spin. Bondi's vision, deregulate to focus on violence. But data shows regulation reduces crime. States with strong laws have 50% lower gun deaths. Cuts could increase ghost guns or imports. DeLauro yielded, frustrated. Bondi's defense revealed strategy, appeal to base with rhetoric, avoid numbers. This segment shows how philosophy drives policy. Conservatives see cuts as freedom, progressives as risk. In 2025, with crime rates fluctuating, this debate defines priorities. DeLauro's self-answering moment was pivotal, forcing numbers into open. This segment analyzes the stats, aftermath, and implications. Quoting the budget, she revealed 541 IOIs eliminated, 40% capacity loss. Inspections drop, risking more violations. 284 support, 186 agents gone via attrition. These figures devastate. IOIs conduct compliance, fewer mean lax oversight. Support personnel handle logistics, losses bottleneck ops. Agents investigate, reductions delay cases. Bondi's response, regulatory shift to streets. But DeLauro argued it weakens trafficking fight. Aftermath, chairman intervenes, exchange ends frustrated. Implications, exposes divide on law enforcement. Bondi defends as modernization, DeLauro as dismantling. Placing the clash in context, this segment explores gun trafficking landscape. ATF's role crucial in tracing, but underfunded. Cuts exacerbate issues like iron pipeline. Bondi's merger idea, pros and cons. DeLauro's concerns valid per experts. DeLauro's fentanyl stat sets tone. This segment dives into drug cuts, HIDTA, OCDETF impacts. Analyzing styles, DeLauro's aggression, Bondi's calm. How theater plays in media. Bondi's integration versus DeLauro's underfunding claim. Analyzing styles, DeLauro's aggression, Bondi's calm. How theater plays in media. What this means for 2026 budget, law enforcement. Wrapping up, clash as microcosm of divides. Why it matters now.